Michael, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Gordon.
Nice one. Well, congratulations on the book. I can see it. I can see it there behind you. It's an amazing feat. So look at that. The automatic writing experience, or brilliant stuff. Honestly, I mean, I'm not sure what I expected, and we'll obviously talk about it in depth. But it's the most thorough treatment of automatic writing, I think, is possible. So you definitely poured your heart into it, and that really shows. So thank you very much for the book.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm glad that when you said thorough, you didn't say doorstop.
Yeah, that's true. It's an impressive piece of work. Let me put it that way. And we'll get to it, but you're a first-time guest on the show, which means you get the traditional first question, Michael, which is, were you a weird kid?
Always.
Always?
Did you sense the hesitation there?
A little bit, because I do have some follow-up questions. I know some of the weirdness that happened in youth, but do you think as a kid you were weird?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. No doubt about it. So I was diagnosed with ADHD. My mom didn't even tell me, first at 5, then at a little after 7 years of age. I never quite fit in with other kids. I remember at 5 years of age, standing on a play school Matchbox car garage set, which tipped over as I was looking out the window, and I knocked my first tooth out. But what I was doing is I was thinking about my parents who weren't home. And I said, if they're not home, do they exist? If I'm asleep, does this world still exist? So I was asking about existence and consciousness at 5, which probably makes me a little bit weird.
It does. I also note with interest, because it's certainly one of the follow-up questions, is you have esoteric or philosophical inquiries that seem to be associated with traumatic bodily events. Is that
Oh,
is
you
that
caught
something
that.
Yeah. Is that something? I mean, because you fell over and knocked your tooth while thinking about the metaphysics of existence. Is that something that happened obviously from an early age?
Yeah, we tracked it when I was living on Maui. So you've lived on 2 volcanoes. I've lived on the side of Haleakala and Maui, and then across from a volcano that caught on fire, not actually due to lava, in Colorado. but I did catch that synchronicity. We also did see another DeLorean, but we didn't get to ride in it a day or two ago. Not the one from Back to the Future.
Yeah.
But when I was on Maui, we took inventory before past life regression of 36 specific injuries or traumatic events that landed me in the hospital that had taken place in my life up till that time. And so that was, I don't know about universe says yes, still is, but hopefully in a kinder way, a means of grabbing my attention. And, if we want to go really woo-woo, we can say that there were some moments of upgrades, although they didn't feel like it at the time.
You can go as woo as you want on this show for sure, because that was definitely going to be one of the questions. I'm sure you've. And before we get to that, you describe yourself in the book as an angel guy. Have you always been that? Like, did you have spirit experiences as a kid as well as the accident-prone metaphysical stuff, or is that something that you developed on your journey?
Great question. No metaphysical experiences that I can recall as a kid. None that, I knew things were, the universe was a little bit squidgy, a little different than we expected, because as a kid, like in summer camp, I was the one who the kids can count on if we want to go sneak and steal some candy bars from the commissary or whatever it is in the middle of the night. They could say, "Hey, Michael, wake us at 2 or 3 in the morning," or whatever it is. And I go, "All right, wake up at 2." And I would just pop awake. So I knew that there was something more going on, but I was into more science fiction, Isaac Asimov, War of the Worlds, Journey to the Center of the Earth. That's what caught my attention. I didn't know metaphysical existed. Now, I grew up as a good Jewish boy who was sent to Catholic kindergarten, then went to Hebrew school, then went to Unitarian junior high school, then Catholic high school. And so I was getting this peppering of different mainstream religions, but nobody actually seemed to believe anything. It was all via rote. And so it wasn't until I dated a girl who was Navajo, Native American, that I started actually experiencing anything in the spiritual side of things.
Really interesting. And it's funny you mentioned that in the context of angels, because the members at Rune Soup are doing a angel magic course this quarter. We do a different course each quarter. And it's interesting because angels have been part of Judeo-Christianity and arguably predated. Like, these are really ancient beings that kind of got caught up like inheriting furniture. People don't really know what to, in Judaism and Catholicism, people don't really know what to do with them. They're like, yeah, they're in the book, so they're real, but I don't know what else to do with them since then. It's almost as if to be amongst religious people is where you find angels being held at arm's length, and not for a lack of interest, but I don't know what this is about. I don't know why it's here. They don't take that next step into the invitation, I think.
Yeah, my mom said, you can't believe in angels, you're Jewish. and I said, Mom, let's go to the story of Passover. The 10 plagues, Moses, Egypt, let my people go. And the reason that you have that little thing on your door called a mezuzah that announces to the world you're Jewish is so that the angel of death, in quotes, could fly over and your firstborn wouldn't be smoted back in Egypt. It's, if you go to the Kabbalah and other mystical Jewish texts, it's all there everywhere. It's there in, the Torah, Old Testament as well. But you're right. People don't know what to do about it, except maybe more in the Catholic side of things, which I'm familiar with a little bit as well, have little statues. And don't know what to do with them.
Exactly. And it's really interesting to look at it historically, because there's been different periods of angel cults. And I think that's one of the reasons why official religion is a bit squeamish about it. So there was a few times you look at the writings of St. Paul, and he's railing against people praying to angels in what is now modern day Turkey. And we don't necessarily have evidence for that, but if he's railing against it, it's because every time he turns his back, they're up there bothering angels. And so there's been a few times in history, same thing in early Judaism, where people are like, well, what do we do? Please stop. You can talk to angels, but please stop worshiping them. And it's this sort of really long history of it being woven in and out of human power. And I find it fascinating. Angels in particular as beings that essentially require you to take that step towards them. And you have to do that of your own volition, because there's not a lot available officially to help you navigate.
It is kind of wild. In fact, I just taught a class on this last night. They're always there. They're always by your side. They're always literally, if you call on them, you can feel the brush of their wings on your arms or on your back. They're there, but they're kind of, the best way that I've heard from the angels in my channeling is they're kind of lonely and outcast right now. And watching, can I swear on this show?
Swear all you want.
Just watching shit go down. And they're going, oh, dear Lord, please call on us to help. We can take care of things. But if not, we can help in a life or death crisis. But other than that, we're watching you heading for the cliff. Yeah. So it's only when we call on them that they can then step into a large amount and really help us. Now, you're called Rune Soup. There are signs, symbols, and synchronicities that they'll give us all day long to try to wake us up and say, hello, we're here, and guide us that way. But that direct assistance, we have to call on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, this will probably come back in a minute, because I want to ask you about the sweat lodge experience, to go back to the biography and having a Navajo girlfriend and then participating in ceremony that allows you to kind of wake up to the wider reality that we operate in, right? Did you, and I'm going to ask you to, about that story in a minute, but we've sort of jumped through a childhood where there wasn't spirit experiences, except probably dream stuff that you can't recall in adulthood. Have you had moments of subsequently kind of looking back on your life with this wider awareness of spirit and going, actually, that was probably a thing, now that you know it's there, like yet more near misses with calamity or so on. But have you kind of, now that you're aware of spirit, look back on your childhood and gone, well, that might have been a thing?
I look back, what I recall the most, it's a brilliant question. What I recall the most are the punctuation marks, which for me were injuries, which if I look back on them now, were the greatest gifts in the world. And so as a gift, I don't consider that an accident. At 10 years of age, breaking everything in the left leg, 5 or 6, I guess 6 operations, all sorts of stuff, told you'll be lucky to walk by the time you're 18, this, that, and the other thing. And I realized at that point, I didn't have a spiritual awakening to the experience, but I realized everything that I've been told about my health, about who I am, about what I can be is wrong, that nobody knows other than myself. That so there's a sense of self-agency I got from that experience. Racing in Europe years later, trying to make it to the Tour de France, waved by a safety official through a blind turn filled with a giant crowd into an oncoming car, which ended my career. Although the doctor in France said that I hurted the automobile. And I said, au contraire, automobile hurted me. That at the time I would have told you God is dead. There is no God. Spirituality doesn't exist. Looking back on it, that was massive, positive steering in my life. And so they've been there all along for me. And when I had that past life regression after taking inventory of those 36 events, what I got is that I went before a council of elders on the other side. And I have had 2 near-death experiences, though I haven't seen the council in those near-death experiences. But I went to the council of elders for coming back to earth. And I said, give me the works. And they're like, no, man, you can't handle the works. And I'm like, give me the works. And so until I started to renegotiate that contract, those punctuation marks were there as steering and guidance. Now I can see other things too. Sending me to Catholic high school and putting me 3 doors down from the pastor's office, or would it be the pastor's or the brother's office, whomever it was, and 3 doors down from the chapel, giving me this breadth of modern religion, I think was also kind of grooming me to actually let that go, but with a greater understanding.
Interesting. So I like your experience of the elders. It actually matches the thing that you needed help renegotiating, because you were going too fast. So even prior to incarnation, it's give me the works. It's like, no, go at a rational pace. It's like, no, lay it on me. And it's been associated, like the rollerblading or whatever one is the same idea. You're literally going too fast and you have to be paused. Right? Interesting. I like it. Would you like to tell us about the sweat lodge experience, which is in the book?
Yeah, the sweat lodge experience was both incredibly profound and somewhat mundane. You're in a sweat lodge from sundown to sun up. It's a Navajo hogan. I believe it's an 8-sided wooden structure, fire in the center, dirt floor, flume for the smoke to go out in the center. You have your medicine man who's chanting and playing the drums. You have another gentleman who is like I guess in Jewish religion, you call it a cantor, somebody who's helped leading with the music as well. And you sit on a little Navajo woven carpet in the dirt from sunset to sunrise. You're not supposed to fall asleep, and you're supposed to watch the coals the whole evening. In the middle of the ceremony, they give you peyote, which is a powerful medicine from a mushroom, the peyote mushroom, to help guide you on this journey. Now, it's interesting. It was my first experience with a quote unquote psychedelic, and I'm not big on that term. I call it plant medicine. My first experience with plant medicine, and on a conscious level. And I was worried I was going to throw up from this stuff. I did take my serving, but I probably could have taken more. But from a conscious level, nothing happened. I wasn't ready on a conscious level. However, I entered the Hogan going, there is no God. God's not real. This religion stuff really sucks. And I left the Hogan the following morning going, I'm not alone. Spirit is here. Spirit is here every moment. And I've had some other profound experiences to really ground in that I'm not alone. But that was the first time that I really knew there was something greater than myself. And in fact, when the relationship ended many years later, I was crying not for the relationship ending, but because I didn't know how to get back into the Native American church since I was not Native American, to be able to get that connection again. I felt like I was losing God when that
Right.
relationship ended.
Yeah, I one of my ayahuasca experiences in the Amazon the other year, one of the nights of ceremony, same thing happened and I was taking the full dose, and the night before, a very profound experience, but there was 1 or 2 nights there where nothing happened for hours, nothing. And then it did in the last couple of, everyone else was coming too. And for some inexplicable reason, these apparent molecules, although it is a spirit instead, that are supposed to come on in 45 minutes, took me 5 hours of me just sitting there, like sober, like I could do a math test. And it's that, isn't it?
Medicine
It's
has a
like,
divine intelligence to it. Everything happening just as it should, just the way it should, which probably gave you, what's interesting, it probably gave you a completely unique perspective, because now everybody else has had their experience and they're coming back, and now it's your turn. And that staggering of time probably made a powerful difference.
it did, because in particular, I had to stagger back to my tambo, which is a 15-minute walk through the jungle in the middle of the night. And that, when you are in a really altered state of consciousness.
I've been down the ayahuasca path.
Yeah.
Everything at that point is a vine, is a snake. I
It's
can't even imagine trying to get through there.
Giant toads made of jewels, and it's wonderful. It just took a while to get back to the tambo, and it was exactly that I had to do dream work back in the tambo rather than in ceremony. So she kind of waited until it was the right way for the medicine to work, as she does, right? But yeah, it's really interesting that it was to be with the medicine like peyote in a sweat lodge, and then for it not to alter your state of consciousness, but to ultimately and permanently alter your consciousness. That's how like medicine works.
Yeah.
Nice one. I want to talk about, because you're, I think, the first person on the show who's a double NDE. But before we get to that, I haven't been able to work out why Maui. The story of how you guys left and so on is amazing. But why did you go to Maui in the first place? Is that an obvious question, like because it's Maui, or was there something else to it?
Because of Taos.
Okay.
When my wife and I got married, I had lived in Colorado for, I don't know, 20, 25, 20, 23 years at that point, off and on, that and racing bicycles in Europe. I had bounced back and forth to living in Europe as well, but Colorado was home. But after we got married, she took a trip outside of Colorado to the desert Southwest with a dear friend, and she came back and had fallen in love with a very spiritual town called Taos, New Mexico, and home of the Taos Pueblo, the only Native Americans in the US who hadn't been conquered by the US. And so she came back and said, "We're moving to Taos." And I said, "We're what?" And she goes, "Well, I'm moving to Taos. You can come with me if you'd like."
Yeah.
Aye, Captain. We moved to Taos. We're in an Earth ship, an off-the-grid home built into the Earth. Whole beautiful story behind it, but the Earth ship was failing and in disrepair. And in the month or two that we were there, it's hot, it's deserty, there's giant fires, there's ash raining out of the sky. In Australia, you're very familiar with this. It's a very uncomfortable, unsettling thing, and you crave water, aka you're in Tasmania. And so it was natural that we started craving water. Now, at the time, I was finishing up a book tour, and I had my service dog Sawa with me. And so we couldn't go to Maui or someplace that was really water bound. But when we were back visiting her folks in New Jersey, Sawa passed away. And we said, well, let's go visit Maui and check it out. We want to be with the water. We want to go someplace where we can heal. We'd been through a lot. We got to Maui, the plane landed, it was Maui. And she either sucks you in and spits you out. Now, as you've lived on 2 different volcanoes, my guess is that you actually understand the concept of spits you out. Yeah. So what Mother Maui did was suck us into the point where she could have killed us until we figured it out and jettisoned off of the island. Because what we were supposed to do we'll put supposed to in quotes, it's all perfect, it's all in perfect alignment, was we were supposed to soak up wisdom, soak up healing, gain the rootedness of the island and understand aloha spirit, and get the hell off of the island to teach that to others, not to keep soaking it up once the tank was full and the cup is flowing over and over and over.
Yeah, because you have a kupuna in your spirit team, so
Yes.
you guys jumped in on the medicine of the islands, I guess.
Yeah, and she was a kapuna in physical form when we met her on the island. She transitioned, I believe, a year or two after we got off, after we had left the island. In fact, we got visited by her on the phone, I think maybe a month or so before. No, it was a few months before she passed away. She'd been in and out of dire straits health-wise. Why? Because Native Hawaiians, any people who are conquered, we'll use that word, who are conquered, have real challenges with their health and with their diet afterwards. And the Hawaiian people are certainly no exception. But after she started to get healthy, she called one day, a few months before she passed away, and she said, "I'm back."
Mhm.
And it was the coolest call in the world. And I believe the last chance that I ever had to speak with her, until she transitioned. And now through automatic writing, I can channel and speak with her anytime I want.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. I like and I understand completely that framing of going to a place of healing, being healed, and then having to move on, and particularly in Jess's case, getting a kick. Like it is now time. That the mold story is amazing, which is in the book for people.
Thank you for
And
reading the book and doing your homework, by the way.
oh
It's
no,
so
I
rare.
was
I do it as well, but thank you.
yeah,
You probably don't hear
very well.
thank you enough, but thank you.
Thank you. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, it actually reminds me of something Terence McKenna said, speaking of people who lived on the islands. Once you've got the message, you hang up the phone, and it's not quite the same, but it is when you're okay, I'm healed, now I need to go and participate in further healing. And I really enjoy that framing. But you've had a number of a string of options or invitations to heal, Michael, over the course of your life. Shall we talk about the double NDEs? Because I think that's a nice way of folding into automatic writing.
Go for it.
What's it like? Tell us about dying twice already.
The greatest smack on your head you'll ever experience, even if you haven't smacked your head.
Yeah.
The first one was a rollerblade accident, and the shortest version of it is, so I was an elite level, I guess that's a good term for it, professional athlete, so elite level athlete. And I'd been training for a world record skate across the US to help people with learning disabilities and attention deficit disorder. And after a training session one day, had taken off my skates, put my feet in a mountain creek, cooled them off, prayed for safety and guidance, did some meditation, laced up my skates, rounded the first bend. Wasn't actually going fast. It was a steep little downhill of like 10 feet, 3 meters, real short. But a father had stepped out onto the bike path, teaching his baby how to walk, and stepped out right in front of us, or me, as the case was. And I don't even know how I did it, but I threw myself up and backwards to try to stop myself. I would say that was divinated. I have no idea how I managed to do that. And when I landed, exploded all sorts of bones on impact, lay there in silence for a moment, didn't get any pyrotechnics or anything of the sort. Eyes were certainly closed. Something special is taking place. How do I put this? I recently had a clearing session by my wife, who does a soul link technique that removes wounds and blocks from traumatic experiences. So I'm not experiencing it with tears now, but it's very unique how I'm feeling it right now because of that experience that she did with me. When I hit the deck, the old Michael left, new Michael came in. Now there's talk about, is that the same soul or something? I think it was me before and me after. That's my best guess. But who I was completely changed in that moment. My awareness, my understanding, my love, there's this sense of oneness, the sense of joy. I'm known on my show for my, forgive me, woohoo!
Oh, I'm familiar. Yeah.
It's just this childlike joy coming from the universe that totally did not exist before that happened. And I had on the ground when I came to the most biggest beaming ear to ear grin. At the same time, I had to take my left leg and flop it over the right because there was bones sticking into the femoral artery that were about to kill me. But I was like, life is good. Life is great. Life is awesome. The level of understandings, like, let's say that I was on my spiritual path and I was a 34-year-old on my spiritual path, or 36-year-old on my spiritual path. All of a sudden, I have wisdom way beyond that, understanding way beyond that, understanding of things that work that I had no business understanding. It was like I got some sort of crazy levels of downloads and understanding and love and oneness in that moment. In fact, when they scraped me off of the tarmac, first, everybody who came by, EMTs, fire department, they're like, did you hit your head? Because I had this huge grin and I'm like, no, no. But I'm like coaching one of the ambulance people, and in the ambulance, and I'm coaching him about how he can help his nephew with attention deficit disorder. And in the hospital, I'm trying to take a selfie of myself before the doctor wheels me into surgery. And he goes, you better put that away because you're about to lose your leg or lose your life. And I'm going, don't worry, doc, it's going to go back together better than you ever expected it would. I'm coaching the doctor. And it did. He actually came running in the next day and threw up the x-rays. He goes, Michael, you're never going to believe it. And he was a reserve doctor. It went back together better than I ever expected it would. So that left me with a titanium femur in the left leg, titanium hip, and a couple metal hoops that hold it all together. Fast forward 7 years, 1 month, 17 days later, the express version, slip and fall in a mountain creek outside Lake Tahoe. And I started to get, I'm going to call it tunnel vision. I don't know that it was a tunnel of light, tunnel vision. Basically, I'm starting to die. And I have this sense of both incredible peace and a sense of incredible horror as my wife is coming running back to me saying, Michael, what do I do? And I had just hugged her and kissed her and told her I'm ready to have kids. And so I had a choice: total peace, bliss, and a knowingness. You don't die. It's just a portal. Or not abandoning the wifey. You don't abandon the wifey.
No.
And
She'll follow you. She'll follow you soon enough, and then you're going to have a discussion.
yes, this is well put. And so I managed to consciously bring myself back, force myself to breathe. I did it by looking at what was the most brilliant light above me I've ever seen, but we're going to call it Lake Tahoe sun. And I breathed and I said, how do I do this? First off, I yelled at myself with profanity, start effing breathing, because my body didn't want to breathe. It was done. It was done. And so I had to breathe in light. And I said, how do I get through this? Send out love, breathe in light, send out love for an hour, stuck in the creek bed, waist down from the waist in the water, but not deep at all. And I was in such a state of joy, and I was getting such incredible, profound downloads over this half an hour or hour in a creek that halfway through, I ended up singing because there were people, witnesses there. I can see clearly now the rain. I was in such a state of joy. The emergency crews get there. They're freaked out. They're panicked. They used profanity. The state of California called me later on and said, do you want to press charges against them for their unprofessionalism? They're freaked out because there was no blood pressure. But I was still alive. And 2 helicopter rides later, another grisly surgery. The next day I come to, and the physician's assistant who was in surgery says, Michael, I don't understand it. How did you get the x-ray up on your website already? I'm an unconscious, man. What are you talking about? And he showed it to me. He goes, look. Well, it turns out that I now had a twin matching titanium femur in the right leg, a twin matching titanium hip, identical metal hoops. And before I had a 2.5 centimeter leg length discrepancy. Now it was completely gone, completely balanced.
It's So weird, Michael. It's amazing. It's so weird.
You can't make this stuff up. I'm a dowsing rod or tuning fork now.
Yeah. A question that occurs to me, because you also, yeah, broke your leg quite severely when you were younger and other such things. What's the most painful? Because it sounds like you're in a very altered state through those serious traumas, but is one of them, or one of the other many divine accidents that have happened to you, what's been the most painful thing you've been through? Because you've been through a lot. Do you know, physically painful? I don't mean the emotional stuff and so on. Like, what's worse? Yeah.
My guess is the second experience, because some of the bones were cutting into the femoral artery. Fortunately, they didn't fully pierce it, or I wouldn't be here. But what would happen is, laying in that creek bed, every few minutes, all of the nerves in the back would fire.
Wow. Yeah.
And so it would just shoot and rack me with pain. Now, with that said, my guess is more painful in a sense, and less painful than when I got hit by that car in Europe. Because when I got hit by the car in Europe, I had a right angle bend in my leg above the ankle. And they chose to cold set it after I stopped screaming in a hallway in the French hospital where I was for observation. They cold set it with 8 people yanking on me to snap it approximately back in place. And I have said since that time, because they kept me without pain meds for 12 hours to observe me, that had I had a gun, I would have taken myself out. My guess is, though, the pain was less, but the anguish is more. The expression, the good Buddhist expression is pain's required, suffering is optional.
Absolutely.
And so the label that I placed on that experience was, my career is over, I've ruined everything, I'm done for. Versus the near-death experience, I'm in like, woohoo! You know, it was a completely different label. This is an upgrade. This is something beautiful. Something amazing is coming out of it. Completely different understanding of the world.
Yeah, I love it. And I definitely resonate with the optional suffering, inevitable pain distinction. It's really useful framing for approaching trauma and transmuting it. So that's definitely really, yeah. So you would have had 12 hours of physical pain and enough time, way too much time to stew on the poor me. Yeah, that's not good. That's an initiation or an ordeal of itself. Yeah.
And without a shaman, for instance, to guide you, because it is ceremony. As crazy as it seems, you laying there broken wherever you are, that is ceremony. Something sacred is taking place. We don't understand this, but everything is sacred. And that's one hell of a ceremony, or as you call it, an initiation. But without a guide or any map or understanding of what's going on, you know, we really need, when we're born, to be given a handbook, and the handbook should say on the cover, objects in the mirror are not as they appear to be.
Absolutely. Well, funny enough, speaking of guides and handbooks, this is actually not that clunky a segue.
I like it.
Yeah.
You've done well, Gordon.
Yeah. So the topic of the hour and the subject of your amazing book is automatic writing. So I guess we should begin with, I guess, your definition of it, but also when you first encountered it and when it started to get really good. Like, do you know what I mean? There's always a moment, if it's channeling or mirror scrying or whatever, you start it and you go, I'm a bit into this, and then you'll have an encounter where you go, wow, that went great.
I'll jump to that second part first. You're gonna have to refresh me on the first part, but there's really good, and then there's really good. And so my guides and my angels have challenged me for years to be in automatic writing 2-3 times a day. They call it with me the automatic writing sandwich. They're like, look, you wrote the book, you got to do this a whole bunch. Of course, they're the ones who made me write the book. Them, and at first my wife. I had no plans on being an angels guy. None, zero, zippo, channeling, nada, mediumship, nada, none of this. Wasn't going to be my bag, baby. But that's not what the angels and guides had in mind. Just this past month, now 2 months ago, I'd been doing automatic writing. It was going very, very well. And my wife, she does automatic drawing. And apparently this one day she was doing automatic graphic design work, just channeling and messing around and seeing what comes to her. And she said, you know, you've been teaching a boot camp for the last year. I don't want you to teach the boot camp anymore. I want you to teach every Wednesday night class called the Manifestation Mastery Circle. Okay, that sounds interesting. And once a month or each month, you're going to teach a different master. So this month, we're going to start with Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. All right, that sounds cool. I can do that. She goes, all right, tomorrow morning, I want you to channel him and see what Napoleon Hill has to say. Hold on a minute. You want me to do what? She's like, yeah, you're teaching with Napoleon Hill. I'm teaching with Napoleon Hill. Well, more specifically, you're going to take back information from Napoleon Hill. You're going to make it your own. You're going to learn. You're going to upgrade the lessons of his, and then you're going to share that with the world. Starting into that process, because the next morning it was basically like Ooga Booga land, sort of like in the Matrix of Mr. Anderson, we've been waiting for you. I have Napoleon Hill going, Mr. Sandler. That was a moment where the curve took off to a level I'm not even understanding right now. And my teachings have taken off. And certainly I go into automatic writing multiple times a day, but now with a focus because I'm teaching. It's sort of like, I guess, when the teacher's ready or the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And when the teacher gets to teach, they immediately become the student and universe appears.
Yes. Yeah. It's that's a really brilliant example of like when it gets really good, because it sort of reminds me there are other manifestation techniques, things like sigil magic, which we do, where you can kind of get caught in a virtuous, how to describe this, like a runaway climate change effect, but good, where you can in sigil or enchant to be better at sigil magic or better at enchantment. So you kind of get this and to be sufficiently proficient at automatic writing and the teaching of it to be good enough to contact masters to continue teaching is another one of those, as you say, it's a curve thing. It's a well, now it's running on its own ever increasing potency.
When you say that, I actually get a little bit scared. Not scared like I'm gonna tamp it down or anything, but like yesterday, I was teaching a YouTube live event last night on angels. And in the middle of the day, I said, they're here and there's nothing I can do about it. And my wife's like, well, I've got to write this marketing document. Can you answer 3 questions for me? And I'm like, I can't even read my notes for tonight now. My brain is tapioca. They're here. It's doing something on its own right now. They, whatever we want to call it, that's really special, but so beautifully out of my control and understanding.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And that's something you never get used to, right? Because it's simultaneously familiar and unfamiliar to be that sensation of being moved around the board. And it's amazing. It never stops being fresh. However many times it happens, whenever, I mean, I call it magic, doesn't matter, right? But whenever it works, it never stops being fresh, even decades in. It's just an incredible thing.
No, and I'd call it magic, and I'd call what you do certainly magic. And it is, I mean, we're playing with the same thing. We're playing with energy. We're playing with frequency. We're playing with vibration. We're playing at a level beyond words that supersedes words and then can be turned into words. But that is where the magic happens. And that's the coolest thing.
Definitely. So let's go back. That's a really good way to begin, because now we were talking about how it can work at a level of high proficiency, something like automatic writing. But let's see, like, what is it, and when did you first encounter it? And was there a sense when you first did, like, oh, this could be for me, or was it a journey to coming to where you are with it?
When I first experienced something like automatic writing, I would have said, mother bleepity, mother beep, you stupid beep, and tongue beep, 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 beep. In other words, I had the first experience with automatic writing in a class of contacting the Akashic Masters. And something so incredibly profound came out. You will speak from a mountaintop on high before thousands and millions of people. You will lead. You will teach. Your voice will be carried through the air to millions. And I had to read it back to the class. And I thought, this is my stinking ego stealing the show. And I was furious, Gordon. I was so horrified and embarrassed that I would make this stuff up to kind of grandstand for the class. And I was so upset with myself, and I wouldn't touch it for years. The next time that I went in, same experience, same messages, past life regression, the one I mentioned, same experience, same messages. Well, guess what? I guess I'm not on a mountaintop now, but I was up until a few months ago in Colorado, in the home that's written about in the book, speaking before millions up on a mountaintop on high with my voice. Hello. But my ego wasn't ready to listen. And I didn't have a teacher or a guide to say, here's how you can tell if this is your ego or not. However, I had the second near-death experience. I broke after that, subsequently, all the bones in front of my heart, behind my heart, above my heart. And I'm going, all right, I better start listening, universe. And universe says, we'll go into automatic writing. And this process evolved that's in the book. That's a very refined, easy to follow process for diving into automatic writing, getting in a trance-like state, getting in a theta brainwave pattern for your mind, saying a few prayers, putting pen to paper, and having the angels or guides or simply your inner wisdom, whatever you want to call it, speak to you. And I started doing this on a daily basis. And they saved Jessica's life. We got her healed. We got her healthy from mold toxicity poisoning. They put us on a completely different trajectory. Our show came out of it. Everything good that we've done came out of it. Our coaching came out of it. Every single thing came out of then. We'll go to that word religiously every single day, almost without exception. If there's an exception in the morning, I'll hit at some point later in the day, tapping into spirit and going beyond meditation. See, on Maui, we were holding space in a meditation center for 3-4 hours a day, completely lost. We were like in the bliss, man. We don't need to know what's going on in the world, but we are lost. And then I got into automatic writing, and now I finally got guidance.
So one of the things, I consider myself a ceremonialist and ritualist and so on, and the tech in your book is excellent. It's stuff that I haven't seen associated with automatic writing before. Things like writing down the prayer, because I have a spirit room here, and I do my daily stuff and what have you, as a lot of the listeners do as well. And I typically do more mirror work, particularly at the moment, but I've certainly done automatic writing before. And there's a couple of things that I recognize the proficiency and technical excellence of that hadn't occurred to me before, that you can tell have come from your, considerable experience with automatic writing and being in relation with those beings. And one of them is the writing down of the prayer. And I would just, as an aside, I love the good morning component of an invocation. I since reading the book, I use that for my spirit team, even if I'm not doing automatic writing. That's just, I love it, because I do early morning stuff as well. But did the idea of writing down the prayer come about as a result of regular automatic writing practice? And was it a material improvement in the process? So I actually want to ask you a technical question, because the book is written by someone who is a very competent ceremonialist when it comes to automatic writing.
I know that when it's a brilliant question, so we're gonna play with this together. I know when I first contacted the Akashic Masters, I had written it down. I hadn't been given much instruction about that, but I knew that when I started working with others with automatic writing, and the book is the result of working with thousands on this, it wasn't working. One of the easiest ways to tell if it was working or not, or actually people would share with me what they wrote, but if it didn't seem that they were really tapped into spirit, I would say, are you writing the prayers down? Oh, I say them every single day. But are you writing them down? And it became very clear, because it is a ceremony just as well as you take the medicine, you hear the drums or the guitar or the flute or whatever it is. And the shaman never skips a step. A shaman never says, oh, well, I've got this dialed. Let me just dive right in, knocks one back and then no way.
No.
There's no difference. with automatic writing. You're stepping yourself down into a rabbit hole, or you could call it the underworld or Alice in Wonderland. You can call it, going into Wonderland, but you follow a set steps. Why? Because ritual and ceremony has a purpose, has a frequency. You are getting entrained to another frequency and you are stepping down. And so I found that, among other things, made a massive difference if you simply followed that one rule and actually wrote it.
So we're just speculating here, but why? I'll give you my guess, but why do you think it works better for beginners who are maybe having trouble tuning in? Is it literally because you're opening the kind of like idiomotor actions of unconscious pen and fingers and so on? Do you think, or do you like we're just speculating. We don't really know. To some extent, we just work here, right? But why do you think writing it down works better than saying it? Even people who are like, oh, I say my prayers every day. Have you written it down? And when they do it, it works better. Why do you think that is?
I'm going to give you two thinking mind answers, and then I'm going to give you what I'm hearing.
You might have gone quiet, or
still here. Still here.
Maybe it's me.
Still here.
Your microphone icon is fine. Try again.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
There we
Testing
go.
1, 2, 3.
There we go. Yeah. When you talk about spirit stuff, as I'm sure you know, the spirit world has a particular sense of humor when it decides to give you internet interruptions. And we were literally just talking about the difference between speech and writing and the efficacy of communication. So we shouldn't be surprised. Anyway.
Well, it goes beyond that, because I was starting to say I'm going to give you two thinking mind answers, and then I'm going to give you their answer.
Nice.
And I think they cut me off. They're like, yeah, you can skip the thinking mind, but I'll go there anyway. The thinking mind, just like you say, I would say kinesthetic. So there's a touchy-feely component to it, which helps us entrain the mind. And the second part, coming from my thinking mind understanding, would be that you and I are both alchemists. Thoughts become things, and literally vibrations become reality. And when you put pen to paper, there is a physicality, a birthing of something coming into beingness that I believe is helpful. Now, what they're showing me is something completely different. It's almost like a black hole spinning like this and taking you down into an inner vortex. And when you put that pen to paper, you are now getting sucked up in that vortex, versus, I guess, if you're speaking out here, you're not going down into the word.
Interesting. So they give you an embodied response to like this, a movement-based one. I love it. That has, typically when you get stuff like that, it has the resonance of authenticity. It's not a thing you're making up, because you wouldn't have made that up.
No, I'm trying to figure out what movie I could see something like that. There's a CGI or something.
One of the Pirates of the Caribbean films has like a big whirlpool at the end with the ships, but that might be too violent an image for it. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not actually, well, I have no idea, but it's not actually a traumatic downward spiraling. It's just a movement.
So they're giving me a little bit more, and it would be, I don't know if you've had this experience. If not, I highly recommend chasing it down when you have a chance to get to the, what is the word for it? The totality, is that what it's called? There's a different word for it. A solar eclipse.
Yeah.
To be in a solar eclipse where you see it completely go to darkness, and then you see the corona around it. That darkness, which is like a black obelisk, but is also like a hole, a portal opening up. Because when you're in a total eclipse, and my wife and I got to experience one a few years back, we were we kayaked out in the middle of a lake in South Carolina to experience it. It is a portal to another world. It is seeing to the other side. You might as well be looking through a wormhole. And that sense of looking in is what they're showing me when I look down, as in a sense, looking into a solar eclipse, except that it's actually the corona is spinning and you're writing and going down and inside of this portal.
I like it. Yeah, I feel the eclipse thing. That resonates. It's one of the remarkable things in your book from a ritualist perspective is the writing it down and its efficacy. One of the things, Here's a question. It's sort of a technical adjacent question, which is, do you think, because the book has plenty of former students who have had their lives changed by going through this process and so on. It's really incredible stuff. Do you think it's this is a leading question, but I want to have the discussion. It's the act of automatic writing, or it is that automatic writing is a ceremony which puts you in a healthy or right relation with your spirits and the spirit world and so on. So is it the act of automatic writing, or is automatic writing the delivery mechanism for that kind of authentic contact?
I'm going to go with choice C.
All right.
Door C, Gordon. And this is, so we talked about my abilities. I don't know what we call it. Okay, I'll go with the abilities. Going up on this steep curve. Well, even before we got this Napoleon Hill and stuff place a few months ago, I've been talking about, since last fall, automatic writing in a different way. Since the book went to print, it hadn't been for sale yet, but since it's final, the done deal, then they started giving me more.
Nice.
And what they've been giving me is that there is the level of thought about, here's what you get to learn about yourself. Here's where you get to go. Here's what you get to do. All of that, which is really good. I call it the PPD. You get your purpose, your path, your direction. Really huge stuff. But that's not where the real game is being played. It's being played at the level of energy. It's being played at the level of attunement, frequency, vibration. So I've experienced so many different people who are clinically depressed, stressed, anxious, whatever it is. They do automatic writing and they feel so much better. And they may not have even gotten a single word out of automatic writing yet. What's happening is they're basking in a different frequency. And it's like a towboat carrying them out into the deeper waters. And so if you spend time daily, sort of like there are people who do an ayahuasca ceremony once or twice a year, probably Graham Hancock is one of those people who would do an attunement once or twice a year to get into that vibrational state. Now we're doing it with awe on a daily basis, and it has a compounding effect. That's why I'm getting what I'm getting right now. Some people actually get it a lot sooner than me, but one thing builds on the next, builds on the next in terms of frequency and getting you to, I'll use a term from Paul Selig, who I love very dearly in his guides, getting you into a higher octave, helping you get to the upper room, or helping you vibrate and be in attunement at a higher frequency.
Yeah, cool. It also I like that. It's a lovely explanation. It also provides insight into the interoperable uplift effects. So automatic writing will help a mindfulness practice. A mindfulness practice will help automatic writing. Both will help dream recall and so on, because this is sort of what I would describe it as right relation, but whatever, it's just words. It's that same idea that it's a really invitational way of being in that frequency, for sure. And what some Jungians I follow say, like turning a friendly face to the unconscious. So any of these rituals, if they're automatic writing or dream journaling or so on, if you turn a friendly face to the unconscious, it's going to turn to you in the same way. And I like that. You
become more awake and aware to everything.
Nice one. With that in mind, I love this question because you could answer by saying the old kingdom Egypt. How old is it? How old is automatic writing?
Okay, the old kingdom Egypt. And there we go. Before that, who is to say when is the first? Well, okay, let's go back. I'm getting the image of the ancient cave dwellings, in France, and the images of, the mystical half animal, half human being, which once you've done ceremony, you go, okay, they're real. And that's a whole nother point in question. But the point is, since time immemorial, we've either been writing or drawing in an altered state of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And I would argue that many, if not almost all, of the greatest writings of ever have come from that state. The author gets into a flow state. In fact, we know if the author's not in a flow state, it goes for the wastebasket. They can't get going. It's not until you plug into spirit, because I see the brain as a receiver, a giant receiver. And every great thing that's ever come to us has come from that place. The trick is figuring out how to get there on a regular basis. And the greats since time immemorial had that dialed. And many of us have forgotten that or have learned in school to write by rote. It was there as a kid in every single one of us. That voice was there. So this is just a process of getting us back to the voice that's probably always been there.
I couldn't agree more. I'm reminded some Aboriginal tribes here in Australia will, when they wake up in the morning, even if it's a small ritual, like rearranging some stones or what have you, will do something in response to almost like a dream journal, but as a ceremony, will do something in response to things that happened to them in the imaginal while they were asleep, or the dreaming, right? Yeah. And that's to indicate to the beings around them that they are a being themselves that crosses between the worlds. So we've always, and the trouble with, not even the trouble, but the first step in doing something like automatic writing, it seems to me, is a confrontation with theory of mind, because the one we have in the West at the moment is complete trash. And that
well put. That's scientific term.
Yeah, because until you realize that you're embedded in the psyche rather than the psyche's embedded in you, to use Jungian terms, I don't usually, but it's a good way of
it fits
inviting other
with
people
what we're
in.
talking about.
Yeah, until you realize that, you don't understand that an act of creation, an authentic act of creation, can only be and must only be an upwelling from the imaginal into the waking or physical. And it reminds me why I sort of said Old Kingdom Egypt is 3,000 years later. If you go to the Alexandria in the Hellenistic era and the rise of Hermeticism, one of the things that tripped people up, and we describe it wrong, and it frustrated me at university and high school when we were studying this, is they're saying, oh, there was no Hermes Trismegistus, and people who are in these different schools, out of honor for their god or mythical founder, would sign their name to these documents, Hermes Trismegistus. Or they're in imaginal contact with this being, Hermes Trismegistus, and the thing that is coming out of them is something like what we would call automatic writing. And we can't see that if we don't do the work of understanding theory of mind first. We just open a history book and it looks like they're pretending. It's the opposite of pretending. It's actually a more authentic thing. Pretending is to be trapped in the idea that your thoughts are inside a monkey skull and disconnected from anything else. And I find sitting with how old automatic writing is opens up to a really profound metaphysical question, which is like, well, how old is human behavior?
It does. And when I look at automatic writing, when I look at everything that's led us to human behavior, shall we say, I see it all as a giant cosmic setup. I see everything happening to us, not to us, but for us and through us. It's just this is a means of plugging in to getting an understanding, to plugging into that web that is guiding us, that is always guiding us. Why did you and I trip across each other today? Well, we think it's because one reached out to the other, but where did the impetus for that come from?
Do you want to know?
Sure.
So I'm training with Alberto Violdo in his shamanic energy medicine certification. So I was idly looking for interviews that he'd done to have in the background while I was working. And that's how I found your stuff. So we were introduced by a shaman.
Perfect. And then the question becomes, what was the impetus of your wanting to train with him? And then what was the impetus for you going down this path? And what was the and you pull on these strings until you realize there's no you there.
Exactly. I love it. And it's almost like your book, any books like this are, dare I say, in a nice sense, more dangerous than they appear, because you, particularly if people haven't quite finished the work of things like theory of mind and a sense that they do have a destiny and they are authentic beings for whom something like this belongs, you kind of have to trick them into it. You sort of have to hide the vegetables in the kids' food and say, hey, we can help with like career advice, and this sort of practice will help you get unstuck from a wealth magic and general happiness perspective. But while that's all true, it's a trick because at the other end of it, you're kind of pulling people into an experience of an animate and living cosmos, I guess.
There's a dear marketing friend of mine from many years ago, in fact, back on the time of Maui. And he would say, sell them what they want, give them what they need.
Love it.
And so when we talk about automatic writing, I talk about the PPD. You'll help you get unstuck. Just like you said, find your purpose, your path, your direction. What I don't tell them is, you're going to blow your mind. Pandora's box is going to be open. Little elves are going to come out and start dancing, and life will never be the same.
Yeah.
But that's why I want to get it in. I'm very biased. I want to get it in everybody's hands, because life will never be the same once you are able, just like with your work, to have direct contact with spirit, however you want to define it. You will never put that cat back in the bag.
No, absolutely. In my first book, that it's sort of you can have moments called becoming invincible, where you know in your bones, and in your case, that's quite literal because you keep breaking them. You know in your bones that the universe is not the story of materialism is a very small story of a very big place, right? And I'm sure you get them too, but I get emails from people who are like, I innocuously listened to your show one day, 2.5 years later, here I am in the Amazon. I've been here for 2 months, and my life's never been better, but also fuck you.
I love it.
So
and they say that out of love.
Oh, absolutely. They're the best emails to get. It's like, it's kind of like what I was doing with Alberto, looking for something. It's idly looking for something to listen to in the background on YouTube one day, found one of your old shows. Next minute, here I am. It's really fun to, however challenging the current times are, it's really fun that for people who are ready, you can be in a sort of, you can be in relation with knowledge like this and have that transform you, and then flow that on to someone else. Woohoo. Yeah, I love it. So one last question, and it's sort of a theory of mind question, but I think it's important for people who are like, right, and then we'll get to the resources and where to get the book and all the amazing, plenty of incredible available stuff on the website that you've got going anyway. Why do you think, and it's leading, but it's the right kind of leading. And you can adjust my question if I haven't got it quite right, because I think you'll know what I mean. Why does automatic writing work so well with the big questions? And I mean, life-changing, should I leave my wife? Should I move for that job? Like really ones that don't submit quite so easily to, and I'm a tarot card reader, but like to getting your cards read. Why is it better for, why does it work so well with huge questions, do you think?
It's giving you a perspective outside of yourself. You know, it's the whole Einstein, whether he actually said the quote or not, that you can't change a problem from the level at which it was created. And this gets you so far outside of that level. You get such a more global perspective, who you are, what you are, where you're going. And I think it helps you untether from the thinking mind's attachment to how things have to be. Because I believe almost every answer is there, only 1 degree away, but we're slightly out of sync. You get into awe, automatic writing, you get in attunement, you hear from something greater than yourself, and it becomes really easy to see, oh man, I need to do X, Y, or Z. And so I believe that's where it works so well, with the exception, with the caveat. I would never want somebody to go into automatic writing and day number 1 go, do I leave my wife?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Bad news, because you need this term called discernment, which comes with something called practice.
Yeah, definitely. For me, it feels like it is that not being able to, I don't even like the word solve, but I know what you mean. And it comes back to the having to invite angels in the sense that they are right there. And you just, it's almost a falling back trust exercise of
Hugely
stepping
so.
outside your normal way. And normal is even the wrong word, your inherited way of thinking and problem solving, because it's unfamiliar at first, and it circumvents all the programming and fear-based and lack-based things that will get in the way of a clear decision, because you can just kind of fall back and not be not be in control. And it's really difficult for people. But I think for me, when it's it's a very invitational in a sense that it's widely available technique for having an expanded way of thinking that can get you in and out and around fear, not forever, but just so that you do have moments of clarity, because you're actually taking the problem to the team, right? Like you don't,
Absolutely.
you're not letting yourself, you're not forcing yourself as some puny human to try to solve it.
No, you're going, angels, guides, whomever we want to label it, and saying, help me, A. Part B, what in the flip is going on? That's a scientific term. And where do I go from here? And first off, they calm you down.
True.
Step you back from the ledge, from the cliff. They tell you everything is all right. They tell you you're loved. They help you see your place in the cosmos. They help you understand why this was here to help you. And they help you to understand how stepping forward at this time can benefit from you. And then they'll shine a headlight in front of you far enough for you to step forward, not far enough for you to get the total picture. Because if you got the total picture and you're not watching the movie of your life, you can go sit on the couch and go get your popcorn. They're teaching you each step of the way.
Yeah. This is, yes. And because of that is why you get the emails going, my life has been transformed. Thank you so much. But also, now I live in Nepal or whatever it happens to be.
Well, for ourselves, we call ourselves mountain ocean people. We are by Joshua Tree, California, land of the Dr. Seuss-like cactus trees, where the lawn in front of this house is called sand, and where all the other plants around are called sand, and where you get the picture.
Do you think you're like moving through the classical elements if you've done water and so on?
Oh, absolutely. And I already know that we're going to boomerang to water as an element. Yeah. And I know that my life right now, I have a Buddha behind me that has water circling as a fountain, specifically to balance elements. And I will take a bath over a shower to balance elements. And I continuously looking at how to get, and we had an elements guest on the show just last week, of how we can balance these things. And so, yes, universe is guiding us here. Now, I view the desert in an interesting fashion. I was at a liquor and crystal shop about a month ago. Think about that. Anyway, it's an interesting combination. You buy your booze and you get your amethyst or your quartz or whatever you want. But it had what it called was the world's smallest Etch-a-Sketch in there. Tiny little thing, 2 little knobs on it. You could draw whatever you want. And I'm like, that's the desert. The desert is the world's largest because an Etch-a-Sketch uses little magnets like sand. A desert is shaking everything clear, bringing it back to its bare bones essence.
Here's a question. It's the last one, but I wanted. I didn't realize you guys. Let me put it this way. So, Aleister Crowley, in one of the most, at least in Magic Land, one of the most famous acts of automatic writing in 1904, wrote a book called The Book of the Law, and he did that in the desert. He did that in Cairo, and more importantly, in the first section of the Book of the Law, the star goddess that he's channeling says, if you want to have an understanding of me, go out in the desert under the night sky and burn a little incense in my honor. And having spent time with Ananu and other indigenous peoples in the desert in Australia, there is something impossibly clear about the desert night sky that makes things like automatic writing just crystalline in their clarity. And has that been yours and Jess's experience in the desert? Has it actually atmospherically made the clean the pipe, if you will?
It's a brilliant question. I've got goosebumps or feather bumps or whatever we want to call it, angel bumps. So I'm going to go with yes. Every morning, thanks to Ruru, my rooster, which we haven't even gone there in particular, we take a hike with Ruru the rooster in my arms. And we get back from the hike before the sun has even come up. It is my goal to be out the entire time in the total darkness in the desert. If the moon is not out, I'll have a lamp cracked on just a little bit, the bare bones minimum that I can. If the moon is out, I want to just soak in the desert. There's a stillness, there's a peace, there's a richness. In the middle of the day, it's burnt out, I don't get itness. but there is a beauty in that silence, and it's screaming loud. And certainly what you're saying is very profound, that these lessons coming to me, this upgrade is coming at this time. With that said, it's interesting that we're this little retreat center here. A few months ago, they had to put in a new septic system, and they had a bulldozer come in and was digging beneath part of the property. And he almost broke his bulldozer. And he said, he goes, I'm praying. And he literally said that. So I took note of that. I'm praying I can get through this, because you have a slab of granite beneath you, unlike anything I have ever seen before. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through it with my bulldozer. So we were brought to a place, and we're going totally in flow. Our mind was fighting us, but we had no choice. This is where we were brought. We were brought to the desert. And so we get cleaned out by the desert. We can listen in the desert. And then we were grounded. I mean, deep rooted, grounded here. And it is the perfect place for, it's funny. I still laugh when I say, I don't know why I'm in the desert. I laugh every single time I say it, because I know why I'm here. I know what spirit is up to. I know it's in the middle of upgrades. And I know that if it told me on a conscious level, I would fight it tooth and nail. You can't take me to the desert. I'm a mountain ocean guy, man. But I get it now. And I get it because I go into automatic writing every single day. And if there were time, I'd love to know your journey, how you got there, because I'm convinced we're now listening. You and I are listening to the whispers. And even when we think it's the thinking mind, we know it's not. We know it's not. And so we follow that intuitive hit. We don't have to jump off a cliff. We can take it slowly. I've got my sea turtle, Henry, here. And Henry represents, there's nothing that you can do at half his speed that won't be done twice as good. So we can take our time and step into it.
Green sea turtle is my primary journeying ally, one that I found very young in my journeying. So yeah,
the only one that stays on my desk every minute of every day.
Total club
space. I'm with you, brother.
I love it. So you moved not just to you were sent not just to the desert, but onto a crystal in the desert, which is like if you're stuck on a granite slab. Yeah, that's really interesting. And it's just idly, not just Crowley and my experience with Aboriginal star law out in the desert. I have this take, can't really prove it, but the desert mystics and the stylites and all those people in the first few centuries of early Christianity that spent time in the desert were there because of the night, not because of the day. So they did their best mysticism in the evenings in the desert, because there's nowhere better for that clarity. So I'm sure that's part of it.
I asked my wife, Jessica, because we have daylight savings coming up where they shift all the clocks here in the US forward an hour next week. And I said, would you prefer it where it gets light earlier or dark, or stays dark longer? And she said she is really looking forward to it staying dark longer, because I call that the holy hour. It's a period of several hours where it's just so the veil is so paper thin, wispy, and gas-like, to be able to connect and fall over onto that other side.
Love it. Yeah. So I got up early for this call this morning, and we're heading out of summer because we're in the Southern Hemisphere, and it's now dark again at 6 a.m. because we're so far south that we get really long days because we're a long way from the equator, and then really short ones. And I had a similar, because I do a lot of mirror work, which requires darkness in the spirit room, and proper darkness, like not close the blinds. You need one candle in a room. Yes. And I had one of the few, no, that's an unfair way of saying it, but an exciting thing about a long dark winter is the invitation to do the kind of work that is that's done in the darkness, I guess. Nice one.
I love that you say that, because that's, in a sense, and we've got COVID, we've got desert, we know almost no one. It is the perfect opportunity to draw inward. And we are all, if we're If we'll avail ourselves of the opportunity, a fancy way of saying, if we can have gratitude for the experience, we're all experiencing a long, dark winter now for our highest good and the highest good of all. And so instead of fighting against it, dive into it.
I love it. And it's such a splendid place to finish up the discussion on. So Michael, let people know about your amazing show, where they can get the book, all that kind of stuff.
So they can find Inspire Nation Show at inspirenationshow.com, or better yet, just go to youtube.com/Inspire Nation Show. We've had over 2,000 shows at this point, just under 1,500 guests. So it is a phenomenal wealth of information, and I'm biased, but I think it's pretty fun.
No, it is. I can't believe you guys do a daily show. It's madness.
We have now backed off out of that, and we are going to be redoing the intro because we have now backed off. Automatic Writing challenged me to go back and go back and go back. And finally, the last leap of faith took a lot of work, which is we are down to three shows a week, 3 to 4 shows a week, which doesn't sound
practically
like that.
part-time.
Yes, but one of those shows, only 2 main interviews a week. But now it's funny. One interview is with a guest, and one interview is with me. I call it the in-house term is Michael interviews Michael. And I sit, and this has taken me so long to be able to evolve, to get to flipping on the camera and just being able to speak. It might be easy. I don't know if you do it or not. It might be really easy for you. For me, that was actually the biggest challenge, is to have the faith of going, don't know, let's go.
I do some solo shows, and moving more towards video. But I think because Rune Soup's been going since 2015, and I feel, and I'm sure you do if you've evolved the model as well, that those of us who've been in it for long enough, the 1 hour host and guest format was very useful and life-changing in the sort of early days of podcasting. I'm not sure, and I don't need to, and I think you're the same. I don't need to know what it becomes next as it's in the process of it. I just need to show up for that process. And so I'm reorganizing. I've started a second show about building a Lenormand tarot deck with a friend of mine, which starts at the end of this month. And it's just showing up to like, what is being together but not in place look like? And we don't need to know. If, in fact, arguably, if you think you've got it solved, that is coming out of your mind rather than
you're in trouble.
Yeah. So I mean I resonate with that, because I love having a guest, love getting to talk to amazing people like yourself, and I love doing it. But also, it just feels like podcasting is becoming, that'll still be a component, but it feels like it's becoming a new thing that better matches this moment.
And we're putting all of our focus on the YouTube rather than the podcast. We do the podcast as well, the audio, but I'm saying, what can we do with this medium? How can we change things up? How can we make it more interesting? What can I do to reach people better? Because you and I speak at the level of frequency. I mean, we all do, but we're consciously aware of that. And so I want to meddle with people on an energetic level.
I love it. Nice one. For people who want to be meddled with, Michael, inspirenationshow.com. And for the book, obviously Amazon. Are there other sites where people can get? So
certainly you can get it at Amazon, but even better yet, come to automaticwriting.com. And we've got brain entrainment music. We've got meditations, so many different bonuses that you get, as well as you get the book. So go to automaticwriting.com as well. And you can even on automaticwriting.com, if you prefer to have live classes and videos to guide you through the process, we have the Automatic Writing Experience video-based program with live classes as well.
Oh, awesome. And that's all at that one website.
automaticwriting.com. Lastly, if they want to do the Manifestation Mastery Circle, which is 4 Wednesdays a month, right now it is with Neville Goddard. Next month, I am channeling Florence Scovel Shinn. And then on and on it will go. I don't even know where it's going to go from there. It's kind of, my next class is on Wednesday. And if I'm honest with you, Gordon, I'm scared. I'm scared before each one of these. I don't know what they're going to say. I have no idea what I'm going to teach. I have no idea what I'm going to do. And it works out beautiful each time.
Yeah. Well, so Neville must be a more enigmatic teacher than Napoleon, because you kind of know what you get with Napoleon. But Neville was so in life anyway. I don't know how well you know the Bible, but probably not as well as Neville, right?
I don't know the Bible nearly as well as Neville, and Neville is playing it light. He's playing Bible light, not to scare the audience with me. But here's what the difference is between Napoleon and Neville, and then I'll give the URL for people to get this, is Neville says, all right, Michael Sandler, here's the teaching I've got for you. Let's talk about it. I'd like you to go to this page. Let's talk about this. Let's discuss it. Let's see how, here's where I was wrong in the 30s and 40s. Here's what quantum science is saying today. Here's what we now know about this experience. You don't have to deceive the subconscious. It already exists, blah, 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 blah. And Neville doesn't work that way so far. Neville scares the shit out of me. Because Neville will less come to me just in my automatic writing as much as I will open the door. And Neville has told me today, I've got 4 chapters to read this afternoon. That's one of the next things I do. First, I'm going to go back out into the desert, and then I'm going to read 4 chapters of Neville. And then Neville is going to profuse every single flipping thing I say for the next 48 hours before I teach. Neville is going to come out, and I'm going to have to write it down. I'll be coaching somebody and go, wow, I never knew that. And I will say something on, I don't know if it's another podcast or anything. Neville's just going to, he's more of a little bit of a coyote energy. He's going to play the role of the trickster, of coming out and coming out and coming out, speaking through my voice. And I'm going to go, but I've never heard that before. Oh, I need to get that down. And so it's not quite as straightforward in a sense as Neville, but it is much deeper. When Neville talks about, get the feeling state behind it, or when Napoleon talks about the feeling state behind it, then Neville's like, all right, let's talk about the kingdom within and what this really means.
Yeah. So the way he spoke in life anyway, the way he spoke and wrote is, it must be an interesting thing to have come through you, because it's enigmatic as a performance. I actually have trouble, because a mutual friend of ours, Mitch Horowitz, has a Neville book out that he read, and I was listening on Audible, right? And I'm listening to it, and I can listen to Mitch read the phone book. I love him, right? But I couldn't listen to him speak Neville, because it's this 100-year-old, and would have been enigmatic and incredible to go and watch him give those talks in New York or whatever. But I kept losing Neville because the rhythm of the sentences doesn't match how my mind works in the 21st century. And I love Neville stuff, but I have to read it. So it must be interesting to have that come through you, because I would lose that signal, I think.
I for the last class, I read it, then he started coming through me, and then I tried to read it again. And what happens is, when I'm not supposed to get something, universe won't let me. I could not read it again. It then directed me to YouTube videos so I could get the cadence of his voice and understand what the heck is going on, because he gave some talks in the 1950s that are on recording. And then I'm trying to anchor it in. It was like playing Sherlock Holmes, trying to understand what he was giving me.
Yeah. That's then you've definitely got him. Anyway, the URL for that, Michael, I've kept you long enough.
That is inspirenationuniversity.com.
Nice.
Inspirenationuniversity.com. And that's called the Manifestation Mastery Circle.
Brilliant. Well, for people listening along, of course, this is all in the show notes. But yeah, once again, congratulations on the book, Michael. It's definitive when it comes to automatic writing, as far as I'm concerned. I think it's excellent. Really well done. And yeah, I loved it. And thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much. This has been a true joy and a pleasure. And I want to find out more about your work. And I want to talk with you off air, but I have no other way to put it. In this realm, you're a genius, but you're also a mad scientist.
Yay.
And I love that about you.
Nice one. All right. Well, thank you very much. And yeah, we'll do this again.
Woo-hoo. Shine bright, everyone.